What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. If you're new here, my name's Ryan.
And I'm Kyle, and today it's time to do a tour of the greenhouse. Well guys, it's time to enter the crocodile-filled greenhouse.
So you might think South Florida is the perfect place to keep crocodilians year-round, no issues. Well, in fact, that's not always the case. We do have cold days down here. So he built this greenhouse, and kind of tell us a little about what it does for you.
Yeah, so I wanted to find something that I could be in charge of the elements, because a lot of times it does get cold down here. I mean, we get cold nights in the 30s, and again, that's way too cold for crocodiles. So I just wanted something that's, I can close it up and retain more heat in there. And also, you get a lot of flooding down here. So I wanted to make sure, especially for these small enclosures, that that's not a concern. So I found a retractable roof greenhouse. So what that is the roof actually can open up, the sides open up, so it's just like they're outdoors. But if there's cold or a lot of rain, the roof closes, the sides close, and actually usually stays 7 to 10 degrees warmer at night, and it actually gets 30 degrees warmer during the day. So when you get these cold fronts that drop into the 30s or 40s, it'll stay probably 10 degrees warmer in here, as well as running the well water. So running the well water also heats the greenhouse too, because that comes out at 75 degrees. But also with a lot of cold fronts, you get a lot of the rains initially, which cool water very quickly. So the beauty of it too is closing the roof before that cold rain hits, so it keeps the cold rain out. And again, you can close it up and then run the well water, and actually heats the building. So it's just a lot better system than just having them outdoors with baby crocodiles, just because you can really kind of adjust accordingly with the temperatures and just keep it a little bit warmer. Again, it's not heated by any heat source in here, but you can at least keep it 10-15 degrees warmer, which is a huge deal when it comes to reptiles.
And so for this beginning section, right when you walk in the greenhouse, these are some of the smaller enclosures. Like you're saying, they're 16 feet long by 8 feet wide.
Yep.
And they also have 8 foot by 4 foot, or 8 foot by 8.
8 foot, 8.5 feet by 6.5 feet
for the pond.
Yep, so there's 750 gallon tubs buried in the ground, and then there's actually a ramp that goes from the land area to the water, and utilize it as a cave, so they can actually go underneath it and hunker down like they normally do, especially Osteolaemus, which is an African dwarf crocodile. They're found in caves. So a lot of smaller species love those cave systems. Again, with the younger animals, they're shyer because there are more prey items for smaller animals. So they like to have those cave systems. But as you can see, I put a plant in here, and it's dramatically overgrown. So I honestly have to come in here and cut every 6 months, just because, again, with the greenhouse effect, the plants do so well in here. But the beauty of it too is on the other side, it's very wide open, and especially in the winter, the sun is in the south, so they get that direct sun from the south. So in here is an adult male African dwarf crocodile, the Osteolaemus. And next to him here is a sub-adult male Iqari Caiman. And in here is a juvenile American crocodile. Again, that's a very large species, so he'll easily outgrow this very quickly. But again, this is just a grow out for him. And then another giant species, the Australian saltwater crocodile. This is a male here, so he will get easily 15 foot, if not 20 foot one day, just like that monster outside. On this side is a very rare crocodile in the United States. This is a New Guinea crocodile. So these guys, they're not an endangered species. They're just incredibly rare in the United States, so you don't really see them too often in the animal industry.
So Kyle doesn't know this yet, but he's about to freak out in a second, because he's actually standing in a fire ant mound, and they are crawling all over his shoes.
The Iqari Caiman video all over again.
So we tend to keep things a little interesting here. So yeah, like you said, he's got the Philippines.
These are New Guinea crocodiles.
New Guineas.
So the funny thing is that you just said that, Philippine crocodiles. These guys were actually mistaken as Philippine crocodiles. So the gentleman that I'm good friends with, he imported the animals, and that was a big issue. Is they thought they were Philippine crocodiles, a critically endangered crocodile, so they were very hard to import. Whereas again, the New Guinea crocodile is not a threatened species, so they're very common in the wild. But again, they look very similar.
Kyle just keeps standing in that fire ant mound, so he's gonna be hating it in a little bit here. So we're gonna walk away from the smaller enclosures and get into some of the larger enclosures here for the greenhouse. Now keep in mind, a lot of these crocodiles that he's had in here have been in the greenhouse pretty much since he built it, which was 4 years ago, 5 years ago now?
5.
Yeah, 5 years ago. So a lot of them are actually gonna be upgraded here in the near future. There's gonna be a very special new area being built out that way with some bigger enclosures. So pretty much all these animals are going to get moved out into some bigger enclosures. So if they look a little large for the enclosures, We know it. They're moving out.
So a lot of these species, like the Australian saltwater crocodile, they're going to be going into a much larger enclosure, 50 foot by 35 foot, and even then they'll outgrow that, just because it's such a massive species. But the African dwarf crocodile over here, they actually will be in a similar size enclosure, but actually going to the new facility where they'll actually have a natural pond instead of a plastic tub, just because they don't need a ton of room. They're a very small species. The female is roughly 3.5 feet. The male is maybe 5. And when I actually went to Ivory Coast in West Africa and saw these animals in the wild, they actually have very small pockets of water underneath trees. So the biggest thing is having a cave system for them. So they don't need these large bodies of water like the Australian saltwater crocodiles do.
So when you walk in, you have the two, you have the salty pair here. You have the osteos over in the corner there,
Which is the African dwarf crocodile.
African dwarf crocodile. And then in this enclosure, what do we got here, Kyle?
These two are very special enclosures. These two are the ones that house the adult pair of Chinese alligators, the pair that produced successfully the past 2 years. And believe it or not, that's the adult female right here. Again, like the African dwarf crocodile, these are very small species, so they don't need a ton of room. But there are improvements to be made from this facility to the new facility. So again, I want to give them a natural pond over there with sheep pile sides, so they can still exhibit what crocodiles and alligators do in the wild, is the digging behavior. I actually don't own this pair. This pair is loaned to me from a good friend of mine, Kurt Harsmeyer, and we've done this breeding program together, and they've been doing great ever since. So let me show you something very special here. This is the nest mound of the Chinese alligators here, and this is a nest she uses every year. So the first year she had infertile eggs, just because she's a new mom, she's a young animal. She kind of had to get the rhythm going, and the past 2 years have been successful breeding programs, and that's where she lays her eggs every year. Alongside the African dwarf crocodile that I observed in West Africa was the African slender-snouted crocodile, and they share the same range in West Africa. It's such an amazing species, how so slender, so obviously such a fish eater based on the snout design. But this is another species that's critically endangered. She actually is building a nest the past couple years, just got to find a male for her. So it's not easy to pair these animals up, especially, again, because they're critically endangered. So you don't find too many of these animals in captivity in the United States.
All right, guys, so we're walking a little bit farther down. So on this side right behind me is actually a brown caiman, which is a similar species to the spectacled caiman. They're just a subspecies now, correct?
Subspecies, yes.
Now, it is a little bit of a colder, overcast day, so a lot of the crocodiles actually aren't out, the brown caiman being one of those. And then directly across from the brown caiman is actually an American alligator, and he is actually right here. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see him too well. See her too well. But she's right there. She's about a 7-foot animal. And then we've got a few more species down here. The next two enclosures, we've got the Australian saltwater Siamese hybrid croc right here. Now, she's incredibly gorgeous. And then across her pond is actually, I'm gonna let Kyle talk about this one.
So this is a larger example of the animals we saw in the front of the greenhouse. This is a new Guinea crocodile. And they really don't get too much bigger than this. He will get a little bit bigger, but again, it's not like the Australian saltwater crocodiles or the American crocodiles. He's not going to get this massive size to him. And I'm really hoping to breed these guys. Supposedly, they're extremely aggressive towards each other, especially in captivity. So there's going to be a lot of care taken to put these animals together and see if they'll start to breed in captivity. But honestly, if they don't breed, no worries, because this is not a critically endangered animal. So there's really no stress to produce these animals in captivity. So the last enclosure is the natural pond in the greenhouse. It's the Iqari Enclosure, Iqari Caiman. So there's 2 females in here and 1 male. The biggest thing is finding these guys, because again, it's super naturalistic. Believe it or not, every single one of these plants I put in here by hand. Now, not this, these are just weeds, but those plants over there, I put them in by hand, and again, with the greenhouse, they just take off so quickly. But this is a natural pond, and the funny thing is when it does rain, this fills up just because the ground is, I mean, South Florida is a giant beach essentially. So when it rains on the either side of the greenhouse, it actually soaks into the ground and comes into the pond here. All right, guys, well, now that you saw the larger animals in the greenhouse, make sure you stay tuned for another episode. We'll be checking out the smaller crocodiles out back.
Yeah, so the small crocodiles out back, they've gotten pretty big, so it's time to get them into a larger enclosure. So if you liked today's video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.